Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men In Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Mike Freeman, episode 100 of Richest Men In Town just happened. It just
episode
happened.
100, and you know what, Tyler? It's business as usual.
It is. You know,
Act like you've been there. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Who would have thought? Who would have thunk that way back in the day when we rolled out episode 1 that we'd be back here doing 100 of these?
It is crazy, and tonight it seems sort of appropriate, right? Because we've had the opportunity in the last couple of weeks to have on some of our guests that we've had from the past, and tonight
with the intent, right, to like capture, talk to me about life.
Yeah, because if you think about it, we just had tonight, we had James Paschall join us, who was with us in episode 36, 37.
37, Hey, Saul, you're wrong.
Yeah, so episode 37, which was 60-some weeks ago.
Yeah,
right?
We're coming. Yeah, it was January 18th, 2021.
Which seems crazy. It seems like yesterday that we had James on, and it was a great conversation. But we've been begging James to come back with us for a little while now. Schedule's worked out, and
to our former guests, don't be offended, right? Anybody is welcome to come back. Anybody's welcome to come back, and some are just a little more vocal, and squeaky wheels get greased.
And right? I would just say this: if you haven't been contacted yet, don't turn your phone on silent, because it'll be ringing. But tonight was a great night, and there was a lot of things that I loved that James taught us tonight. I love spending time with him and hearing his perspective on things. What stood out to you, Mike?
Oh man, I'm loving me some James, and I think that I can relate to kind of where he's at in life. At the same time, he's got some challenges that I'm that I think I'm past. Right, he's raising some kids still in the house, and not that I'm an empty nester, but we're in a little different spot. But I mean, I dig. We asked him a question about maybe what he's learned, and he drills down on this difference between comfort and peace.
Yeah,
and comfort being easy and peace being hard fought for and hard to hold on to. I dig that. I love how James is living his life. He talks about, stop thinking that you know things and just listen.
Yeah.
And that, I think that he would include, that's not just listening. I mean, James is a faithful guy. It's not just his prayer life or listening to what God wants him to do, but like listen to his wife.
Yeah.
Listen to his kids, listen to people around him. I think that I love the things that fatherhood is teaching James. I think he's got a presence. And the funny thing is he talks about his dad being a presence.
Yeah, he does.
Well, right? James Paschall, man, you are one heck of a presence.
Yeah, I agree with all that. There was a moment where we talked to James about things a man should know how to do. And his answer was to be able to ask for help, and I'd encourage everyone to listen to that part when James talks about that. But I think if you are in a position like I am in my life where you're looking for some help, right? I think James Paschall is going to give some help tonight. And I think there's some good nuggets to be had that we can take, put into application immediately, right? And find ourselves in a better spot. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, and I love that word nugget. James would say moments.
Yeah.
There's going to be some moments in here, and we might even say, rewind moments.
Yeah.
right? Where you might be listening to it, you're on a jog or you're doing something and you're listening to James and he drops something and it's like, wait a minute, back up, right? That idea of like that exchange with him and his wife. And he says, I'm just so tired of being wrong in my head.
Yeah.
And the idea of people in our lives telling us what we need to hear, even when sometimes we don't want to hear it.
Yeah. That's probably when we need to hear it most, right?
Yeah. James knows who he is. And for all of us, I think part of that rich man life is to know who we are.
Yeah.
Right. And right out of the gate, he says, what other people think doesn't matter if we don't choose to accept it.
Yeah. Well, it was, I think James taught some things tonight that for me, really opened my eyes to some things. I'm hoping that I can be a better custodian of a beautiful life. Right. And
custodian of a beautiful life.
And I think that if we listen with the intent to learn to what James talked about tonight, I think we'll all be in a better spot. And
it's not bad when the episode is brought to you by Baskin Robbins.
Yeah, that's true. 100%. We'll leave that for you guys to find the nugget of that in the episode. But to James, we love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for the life that you're living and for the sacrifice that you're making for the people that you love. And Mike, I'm grateful for you for being here and making this thing happen tonight. It was a blast. And for our guests, enjoy your time with James Paschall, right? Take some notes, learn something. Hopefully you'll get to the point in listening to James that you'll be like James, where he said, I got to meet Dick Moody and Brian Beverly, for crying out loud.
Hey, let's get on to 101. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get on to 101. Business as usual. But for everybody tonight, enjoy your time with James Paschall, episode 100 on the Richest Men in Town.
I'm kind of digging this idea of bringing some people back,
Yeah.
Because the opportunity then for us to get in and look at maybe some show notes or re-listen to our time together, and you can get into like what was moving in us at the time, what was moving in him at the time, and then, fill in the gap. It's been a little bit, James. I'm curious to know what this University of Life has been teaching.
Yeah. So tell me what's new with you, man? Like what's exciting? Hey, look, we got to have dinner together the other night. How about that? Cool.
How about that?
That was nice when that works out every once in a while,
That was nice. Little Blue Water shout out.
Yeah, a little Blue Water Grill had some fish. That was a good night, man. So
yeah, here's where I'm coming from. We've mentioned the blender before, Every once in a while life hits the blender and maybe gets you rethinking about some things or changing your mind about some things. And while I was down there in San Diego, I had an opportunity to hear some people speak, and every once in a while, man, people got away with words, and sometimes that way with words gets Mike Freeman hitting the blender button and shaking some things up.
So what are you shaking up, man?
This idea of changing people. I'm a gold star chaser. I'm learning this about myself, Tyler Gould. Okay. I kind of dig the gold star, and I kind of want to be that person that makes a difference in the lives of someone.
Okay.
I'm going to throw a shout out to my boy, Father Boyle from Homeboy Industries. I'm putting him officially on blast. This guy's got to get on the podcast. Heard a keynote address from him last week or earlier this week. And he starts getting into this idea of like, don't go to people to make a difference. Go so they can make a difference with you. And the idea of like cherishing people. Homeboy Industries reforms gang members.
Right.
It's the largest gang reformation program in the world. They have 10 companies, right? People come to them. They got to want it. And
right.
he does work. But his whole point is people need to be safe, they need to be seen, and they need to be cherished. And when you cherish people, people change. And I'm just telling you, Tyler, cherish is not a verb I'm hearing a whole lot in 2022.
I immediately, what's that song? Cherish the love. Right? I mean, I feel like I'm going back to the 80s, man, with that. But yeah, no.
I was thinking like, cherish the
Hey, man. I love it, man. I don't know that anyone else would love our singing on this.
No.
But,
That's good.
But yeah, but no, that's cool, man. I kind of buy into that. You know,
I totally buy into that.
I buy into that. I mean, I think that's sort of my mindset, and I think that's.
But I
RMIT,
do think,
right?
I think though that I am guilty of, let me get into the lives of people and let me be there to make a difference, so that maybe they can come back and be like, hey, thanks. You know, and the idea of like,
yeah, I see,
being people and like, hey, I see you. Like, here's the idea too. Like, there's a verse out there. There's a hymn. It's a Christmas carol. I'm terrible at songs, especially with all that cherished song drop you just did on me. But he appears and the soul feels his worth.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Christmas carol.
Yeah.
And the idea of like being like Jesus Christ, in that when we appear in the lives of other people, how can we treat them so that they feel their worth? Not that we give them the worth, but in our presence, in interacting with us, honestly, they're reminded of who they are.
I kind of feel like, though, like I just feel like to me, what you're saying is, this is how I interpret it. Like, it's just be friends with people, right? Like, just listening to people, just be there and be in their lives. But we don't have to be have to be a disruptor, right? We don't have to be the one that's saying, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. I mean, I think that sometimes, and I feel like this podcast has sort of proven this out over and over again. We sit down with people, and when we just listen, the interesting two interesting things happen in my mind, right? You and I are edified, Mike, right? Like, we are like, oh my gosh,
every time
change. And I think that the people that we talk to go away feeling like, you know what? My life is worth something, and I'm doing some important things, even though I may not have thought that was the case prior to this conversation or a different conversation, right? I think that sometimes when we just listen because we're honestly interested, and we convey love in that interest, then people are like, yeah, I'm buying into what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. This idea of like,
I'm not a smart guy, Mike, and I'm not a very good guy I don't have anything that I can offer someone that's going to change their life, other than if I'm going to, preach the word to them. Right. But I think that just being there for someone, just to listen to them, is one of the most powerful things ever.
Yeah. Well, and the idea too of like, you don't hold up a measuring stick when you run into people. You don't hold up a bar that they got to reach. You hold up a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
You hold up a mirror so that they can accurately see themselves, not as they're talking to themselves, because we know that internal script, but like as like Father Boyle, Jesuit ministry, right? But he basically says, hey, look, you're looking at your life with like the burden. You're looking at the mistakes you made. What if I told you that I'm looking at a person that's exactly who God had in mind when he made you?
Right. And I think that's right in line with where
that's powerful.
My thought process is, right? Because I think that's the key, right? Because we talk about this a lot. People beat themselves up, and they want to like the worst stumbling block that is in our way is ourselves. Right? Like we build this up and we say, oh gosh, this is insurmountable. I am this person. This defines me. The reality is none of that's true. These things are blips on the radar screen. We can move past them. I mean,
but the burden people carry, right? This guy was just liberating in that, obviously he's getting people that are, they've got prison terms. They're felons. They've made some mistakes, and they've got he shared a story of this amazing guy who's super kind and tenderhearted. He's tatted up head to toe, right? He's got the end tatted on his eyelids.
Yeah.
Right. But he also says, yeah, but this guy, when he was 11, his mom took him to an orphanage and said, I found this kid, and left him there.
Right.
Right. So when we're like, oh no, that guy looks dangerous, let's lock our car, let's keep our kids, let's pull this kid. He's dealing with stuff.
He is dealing with stuff, but there is something to be said about locking your car every once in a while, you know?
Yeah. No, I get it. But as I'm listening to it, I'm like, okay, if my daughter brings over somebody that visibly presents some things that I'm not too keen on, I got to squash those feelings.
Well, that's an interesting
thing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, look, to a certain, yes, I agree with that to a certain
I don't know.
I do think, though, look, the reality is your daughter right now is in.
She better not bring in any boys. She better not be bringing any boys home.
But she's bringing some people that are questionable in the way that they look to a church building on Sunday, right? That's going on. That's happening. You know what I mean? And she's probably getting people going, you know what? I don't think that person really probably belongs in this building, you know? And, you know, I think that's the essence of what, you know, this is about, right?
Let me throw this thought out there too. Let me throw this thought out to you. And Martin Luther King Jr. thought, right?
Right.
Church is not a place you go to. Church is a place you are sent from.
Yeah, I like that thought.
Right? Like, it's not about the going to, it's that I go and I'm empowered by the worship. I'm empowered by gathering together. And from this place, I go out to the world.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah, I like that.
I dig that. That puts that like, oh God, oh, you know, we got to go to church, or hey, Freemans, we go to church. Like, no. Like Freemans, we come out of that church. We come out of that church experience. We come out of that faith experience. You think about it. Oh man, I gotta sit down and read my scriptures. No. You got to come out.
But
that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
dig
think
it.
that you've got to have that mindset though, that you want to be in that space, right? Like you want to be in that space.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, right?
Yeah, but it's a balance, right? I'm in that space for me, but I'm also in that space so that I can be of service to other people, right? Mother Theresa, her quote, the problem with the world is that we've forgotten that we belong to each other.
Yeah.
Right? That your freedom and your interest is tied in my freedom and my interests and my peace and my happiness. And then we're interconnected, right? I dig this thought too of like up in space. I don't know if you heard the news, but we had an astronaut on the Russian space station.
Right.
Well, Russia and Ukraine, right? How are they going to treat the American up there? And he comes down, he's been up there a year, and he lands and he's like, what was that like? He's like, man, up in space, there's no borders, right? We're looking on the planet. Like from that perspective,
right.
We're a crew.
Yeah.
I just think, man, maybe there's something to this civilian space travel. Maybe we just need to get some perspective and get some distance, because he comes down and he's like, yeah, I mean, the world's a little different place than it was a year ago, but like, you know, we're one.
I mean, honestly, it shouldn't take a flight to space.
It shouldn't.
You know what I mean? Like
it really shouldn't.
Man.
But here we are, right?
Well, I think
here we are.
You know, life is complicated, man. Life is hard. You know, I mean, the people that the keynote speaker that you listen to is talking to are in the situation that they're in because life is hard.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been put in some situations where they've had to react, or they chose to react, or whatever. Right. And life is tough. And so I think that the reality is that we have to be able to give each other a little grace, man, and be able to say, hey, you know, life is hard, and I get that it's hard.
Well, I'll see your grace and raise you how about some awe? Right. So we're about to sit down with James, and I know for a fact, right? James Paschall is going to join us. He's coming back to us. He was episode 37, right? This is January 2021. We're going back a little bit.
Yeah.
He's had a river running through his life. And I know for a fact, after this call, you and I are going to look at each other and we're going to be in awe of our brother. We're going to be in awe of how he's living. We're going to be in awe of how he's showing up. We're going to be in awe of the choices that he's making. You know, and it's like, what if we walked around and interacted with people and we felt awe at how people are being them? What if we felt like we watched our kids growing up and we were awestruck at how our kids are doing?
Yeah.
That's a perspective change.
I'm there, buddy. I'm already there.
Yeah.
I'm already there. I think that
except when my kid leaves his laundry out in the living room for 5 days, I'm not so feeling awe there, right? And it's like
you're not feeling awe when you're sitting down with a coworker and telling them that they should be doing something differently, right? Because that's okay. Like, you know, this idea that we shouldn't judge or we shouldn't act harshly. I think I'm going back to Brian Grow. You can have those two things together at the same time. If we're walking around not making judgments and we're not trying to judge things for good or bad or whatever, then I think that we're being very naive, right? I think that there's a space for us to be able to say, is this right? Is this good? And still be, this guy has gone through some stuff, or this woman has gone through some stuff, and she can come out on the other end and show me how to be better.
Yeah, and help me understand.
Right.
Let me sit with it.
We kind of live in a place in history where we're as a culture, we've decided that judgments of any kind are wrong, and we should just blanketly accept everything, right? I don't think that's right. I think that we've been given a conscience, we've been given a spirit, we've been given these resources to be able to judge between good and bad and better and best, and we adjust as we go, you know. But judgment is part of life, man. And so I think that for us to kind of sit back and go, hey, we accept everything and everything is good, and we don't care, we love it all. I don't think that's true. I think that even given someone who's gone through some bad stuff, they'll come to you, Mike, and say, man, I don't want to do that again. That wasn't great. And this is what I'm doing now is better, right? I think those two things can coexist, man.
Yeah, let me throw this out there because I think you and I, we have some things in common. And I think we have some things that maybe we don't have in common, right?
Right.
And Dr. Christopher Emdin has this thought of like looking at people like works of art.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you look at a piece of art and you're like, I don't get that. I don't understand that.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't look like art to me, right? His take on it is, as we look at people and the way they're living their life as a work of art, if we come across things that we don't understand, right? We come across like, why are you living? Why are you doing? Like, sit with it. Listen, like you said. And as you listen to it, you'll appreciate it as the work of art that it might be, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like you and I might look at art. We might walk around in a museum and be like, I'm really feeling that. I'm really not feeling that, right? But like people are like that.
100%. Yeah.
You know, and I kind of dig that idea of like, man, I dig what you're doing here, or I don't understand what you're doing here. Instead of like, I'm out. I don't want nothing to do with you. Maybe that community building is where we sit with it and be like, talk to me about this. And that's what this is, right?
100%. And that's why I say like those two things can coexist. We can make judgments, but we don't need to judge people, right? And dismiss them, but we can make judgments, and then we can try to understand and then figure out where we're more similar than we are different.
And that's the step of dismissing. That's what we need to.
Yeah.
We got to push against that, because I think right now there's cancel, there's dismiss, right? And it's like, let's listen to one another, man. Let's step into a space and be curious and be like, hey, that doesn't look like I would call that art. Let me in on what you're doing here. What do you see?
Yeah, I think
where you've been.
The beautiful thing about life is that we're all so different, right? And that we've all had different experiences. And that's an amazing thing in that you and I can sit down with someone here on this podcast and have a 2-hour conversation with someone who has experienced life completely different than you and I. And by the end of it, we can say, man, we're totally similar. All the three of us. Right. And I think that's the beautiful thing. So I think that to be able to look at life and look at people and go, gosh, they've lived a life that is just something that I just don't understand. I'll never be able to comprehend that. But then to dig into that person and walk away going, gosh, man, check this out. A few weeks ago, I was driving my car, stopped at a corner. There's a guy in the corner wanting some money, right? I had a sign, hungry. I rolled the window down. I gave him a couple bucks. I was talking to him about, what's going on. He's a younger guy. He's probably, I would guess, late 20s. And he starts to tell me, how he lost his job. He got kicked out of his apartment. He's blah, 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 blah. It's just steamrolled into this place, right? And, the judgment, right, just in that 2-minute conversation is like the judgment's gone. I'm like, and at the end I said, I wish you the best, brother. And he was like, God bless you.
Cool.
God bless you, brother. And like,
how long did that take?
It literally took a minute, right?
Yeah, right.
And by the end of it, I'm just like driving away with empathy. Like, gosh, I wish I could do more, And I don't know it maybe doesn't do anything for him, but I'm hoping that he's thinking, gosh, I can have a conversation with someone.
It's connection. Connection's going to do something, right?
Yeah.
Connection's going to do something. And I think that is how there's this, there's some thoughts in Jeremiah lines up with this in the Old Testament, but like there's this thought of I think it's a Buddhist mantra, but it lines up with where we're coming from. Like, oh, nobly born, remember who you are.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Right.
And when we have connection like that, it takes a minute of our time, but it's a reminder of who you are, like your humanity, right? Your divinity.
Well,
I shared those thoughts with you from Wes Franks. Wes gave a talk a while back in church in February, talking about seasons of your life, and like there's greatness there.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that if we can connect ourselves with, and I'll use the word again, but if we can remember who we are and where we come from, right, in the grand scheme of things, right, not in the I came from LA or whatever, right. The big picture, if we look at ourselves that way, then we have to look at other people that way. And if we look at other people that way, our patience increases, our compassion increases, our mercy increases. All of these things increase because we understand who we are, and therefore if I am that, then he is that or she is that, right? And so it's this idea that if we know who we are and we are true to that, then every person that we come in contact with will be treated with a level of respect that they've probably never felt before. And
the choice is theirs, right?
100%. Yeah.
The choice is theirs what to do with that interaction. And the idea 100%. Is that we might activate it, right? We might activate it. But I think that there's something powerful about holding up that mirror and saying, oh, nobly born, right?
Yeah, remember, I love that.
Remember who you are.
I totally agree with that, man.
And we've talked about that before. Like, hey, somebody's gone off the rails. It's not about, it's like, what have you forgotten?
Absolutely.
Let's help you remind you. Let's get you back. Right.
Yeah. And it's funny. You think sometimes like you've sort of got that thing figured out. Right. And, for me, it's something that I'm always thinking about, like, where I come from and what the big picture is. And then the other day I was talking to someone who was like, he's like 18 years old, man. I've met him like twice, youth in the church. And I was at a conference, and this kid comes running from the chapel out into the foyer, and he's like, oh, you're here. And he like gives me a hug, and he's like, and it's crazy, man. Like I literally have met this kid like twice. Right. And he's like, he had this picture that he took with me and him at this youth conference. And he says to me, hey, I just want you to know that I still have that picture of you and I put it up on my wall, and I pray for you all the time. Like, this kid says to me, man. And I remember thinking, like, what? Like, that, to me, like, that was just powerful. Like, someone who just is like, is he's thinking about, what can I do to help someone else all the time? I love that thought, man. It changed. It honestly, I told Ricky on the drive home from that, I'm like, dude, I got a list of people in my head that I need to be thinking of, and I need to be doing what that kid did. Running up to him.
You know what I love about that, man? That's explicit.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about intentionality all the time. That is explicit. Like, not only am I doing it, I'm connecting with you so that you'll know that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, if you wake up and you are struggling, that guy is in your corner.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's that gets you up, if it's that gets you moving on, that explicit is 100% worth it.
Yeah. I got a text message from him the other night. Just said, "Hey, thinking about you. I hope you're doing okay." I just thought that this guy, he's crazy, man. I love it. I love it, man.
Well, I love that. I mean, okay, if you want to, if we're talking about taking a minute, taking a second, and helping souls feel their worth when we're around them.
Yeah.
You're here is about the best thing you can say when you see somebody.
No, 100%.
Right? Like, oh man, I'm
like
so glad you're here.
Yeah, honestly.
That is it. And that doesn't take anything. You're here.
Man.
2 words, not 3. It's a contraction, but whatever. You're here.
Right.
I dig that.
Man. But hey, you know who is here tonight?
Just go.
Dude.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's kick open the doors. Let's let him in, and let's see what's going on in the life of James.
I cannot wait, man. I cannot wait. This guy. So we talk about getting on the show. We talk about getting together with folks that get us thinking differently.
Yeah.
And James Paschall is that guy.
Yeah.
Right. So James, welcome back to the Richest Men in Town, brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you guys?
I'm good. We miss you.
I missed you guys. I was getting a little nervous around minute 15 sitting here. I'm thinking, what could they be talking about? And what are they going to ask me first? I'm trying to get it in my head.
Oh, man.
It's good to see your face, man. James, it's episode 100, dude. Is it episode 100, Mike?
It is episode 100.
Yeah. Very nice.
And we're trying to act like we've been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. We haven't. So
everyone's like, what are you doing? What are you doing for episode 100? Are you going to be like, are you doing a live feed? Are you going to Disneyland? It's like, no, we're going to talk James Paschall, man. Let's go.
Yeah. And honestly, is there anything better than that? I don't know.
There might be a few things, but I don't know what they are.
So James, I'm going to take you back. It was episode 37, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 37 or 39.
Yeah. And hey, Saul, you're wrong. And I got to tell you, I owe you a couple of nickels because I've thought that thought and I've said those things before. Right. Since in our time together, since January of 2021, right. Every once in a while, life hands me a little, hey, Saul, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm looking around, I'm like, ooh, I didn't quite get that one figured out. Right.
Yeah. Welcome to the club, my friend. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Well, I hope that the family's doing well.
They are, man. They're really doing good. We've been dealing with a bout of, as you guys know, Ty, I told you, we got sick, and we got really sick. And I ended up what they said it was just the normal cold. But because I just kept going and going, I ended up with walking pneumonia.
Oh,
and then I ended up with, as of today, I just got back from the doctor. I have just an upper respiratory infection.
Okay.
But because of the indomitable will of myself, they said no antibiotics, just an inhaler. So I took that as a positive sign. I said, okay, I'm going to go home and take a nap. So, but we're doing better. The kids were sick, man. It was a little disconcerting how sick they were, but then they bounced back like that. Me, it was like, hey, this is just, you kind of one day you got to look at mortality as I'm not 18 anymore. I have to do a little bit more self-maintenance to not to stay as sick as this. And then Cammy's like, like a Spanish warrior. She's like, oh no, I'm good. And then today she's like, I'm sick. I'm like, okay, well, full circle.
So let me ask you, James, how does that thought feel when you tell yourself, I'm getting older and I'm not 18 anymore?
Oh, Ty, I'll tell you what, I was talking, I employ a lot of younger guys, and I watch them.
Hold on. That's the worst. Not being 18 and being around 18-year-olds.
Oh yeah. Dude, they got no idea. And I listen to them talk, and I remember my youth. I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand why they're saying these things, but I'm sitting there today before I went to my doctor's appointment, and they're talking about this, that, and the other thing. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, I grew up in the suck it up generation,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You sprain your ankle, you wrap it up, then you go skate the next day and hope it doesn't,
exactly.
Get out.
Skate it off, man. Skate it off.
Right. You get a cold, you just Vicks up your nose and you just go, oh, you have weird feelings in your stomach. You maybe go puke a couple times, but now it's like everything just comes with like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? I have this weird, I'll lay in bed, I'll turn, I'm like, oh, I think I hurt my back. No, I didn't do anything. I just laid here and maybe jerked in my sleep. So it's just an awareness of, Cammie is really good about reminding me, sometimes too much, that I'm not 18 anymore, So she got the laundry list of, you got to do this, you got to get this checked. And I'm just so not predispositioned for that. I just want to just roll through it, and then one day you wake up and you're like, hey, I'm not rolling through anything. I gotta go to the doctor. I gotta go talk to somebody who is educated in regards to what might be going on, and maybe they'll tell me, as opposed to be going, I might be okay tomorrow. But that's where my mind goes,
Yeah.
It's hard to acknowledge sometimes those limitations, right?
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. Like, honestly, like, I'm 47 and I feel like I still want to go like I'm 25, Now, my body doesn't always, it doesn't cooperate,
Right.
But, and there's more often than not, when I'm leaving the house to go do something, Ricky will tell me like, so let's not go full blast today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's dial it back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't even know what that looks like until injury occurs. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that looks like. Right. I don't know
what I'm finding maybe it's I think of the brain as a rubber band, right? And so I've been stretching it for 46, 47 years. And I'm starting to maybe feel like maybe the elasticity of this thing is not quite. I'm not finishing jobs, James. Like, I'll load the dishwasher, I'll close it up, no soap. I'll take the trash out, right?
No bag
replaced. Right? I'm doing like 90% of the work, thinking I'm doing a good job, and Kelly's coming around with a clipboard like, hey, you forgot this, the other night I went grocery shopping, no wallet, right? So I got a cart full. What's going on? I might need a caregiver or something.
No, man, that's just part and parcel of what's going on. It's like, Cammie, I'll be coming home from work, and she's like, hey, will you go grocery shopping? Number one, I don't want to go grocery shopping. Okay, I've worked all day. Yeah. But I love her. She's dealing with things that I'm not. So I'm like, okay, so I'll go get a couple things. And then she'll send me a list of like 65 things.
Right,
and I'm like, babe, that's not a couple. I thought we were going to, okay, never mind. So I'll go, and I'm diligent, and I got to put my readers on. I'm going through the list. I get home with all the bags, and she's like, you forgot the sour cream? I'm like, I got 64 things. The only thing you found was the one I forgot.
A 64 out of 65 is a great percentage.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, babe, I don't really remember yesterday. You should be really happy that I got through 64 things of the 65. I'm like, but no, that's just how it goes these days. It's like the best of intentions is all I can hope for. I got the heart of hoping for the best.
Here's the thing, though. If the three of us lived together, we'd be celebrating the fact that you only got 64 things, but we would never have a good meal together because we'd be missing that key ingredient. You know what I mean?
Oh man, you don't have
I would be
you don't have
nailing
sour
the cereal.
cream. Stuff's going to go
The
south.
cereal for you guys because I've heard it. I know the cereal requests. You know,
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, but at least I got, that'd be my comment every time. At least I got the cereal.
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for the milk, but I got the cereal.
And I wouldn't even care about the milk. I'd just be like, you know what? I'll use water this time around. It's no big deal.
Well, hey James, we were pretty deep, honestly, in our pre-conference before we get together and talk about you before you come in. You know how we do it.
Yeah.
But we're just talking about so many things, but really it comes down to like helping people feel their worth. We talked about judging and when to judge and when not to judge and what that might look like. And then this idea of the power of cherishing people, cherishing people to change people and helping them, hold up a mirror and accurately let them in on who they are, like their noble birth, right? Like, yeah, we've made some mistakes. Join the club. Everybody's made some mistakes. But the idea is like, man, let's remember what this is about. Let's remember who you are. Let's remember your divine worth, right? Your divine birth and all of those things that come with that. And I think it's easy to say, but as Tyler shared, it's actually easy to do. He's talking about stopping his car intersection, guy there with his petition saying, hey, I need some help, and having a conversation with him and explicitly connecting with him. Again, just in that human connection, the idea being as we're trying to live our lives right, then we're hopefully activating some things in the lives of other people that we come in contact with. So I don't know if that stirs anything in you, but that's the conversation coming in.
It's the simplicity of being truthful to who and what we are. One day you live your whole life being prescribed who you are, what you are, how you are. High school is a rough proving ground of trying to figure out who you are because everybody around you is telling you what you are or what you should be or accepting you as this group or that group. And you start kind of buying into the minutia of what that means. I tell my kids all the time, it's like the only thing that can have power over you is your acceptance of what other people are saying about you. So if you don't allow that, then they can say whatever. They can call you this, they can call you that.
If you don't accept it.
Right. It's like, powerless. Hey, you want to be labeled, I guess you can pick the label you want to wear, right? And if you're going to let it have power over you, I get it. I'm not saying that I didn't. I just see it with clarity now. But empowering people, my firm belief is this: people are fantastic. They've just forgotten that they're fantastic. Yeah. They lost themselves in the day-to-day, the upbringing, the consequences of life, the pain. But it's like, no, man, we are individuals are so much more. And as a group, we are so great, but we've lost sight of that because you just get caught up in, well, I'm not going to talk to that person. That person is this. We go out a lot of times. That person
is this.
Yeah. It's just whatever they think. Oh, they're that. It's like, right. Why? Because you say so? I don't think that makes it true.
Yeah.
But I go out with my kids and stuff, and they'll ask me sometimes, and I'm not trying to say, I'm Robin Hood. I'm out just doing good, all the time. But I care about moments. I care about individuals. And I watch people, whether it's a homeless person, whether it's the person just struggling, whether it's a person who just needs a little bit of help. And I do things for them because I'm not trying to be a better person. I'm just trying to be who I was made to be. And my kids ask me all the time, well, why do you do that? And I said, well, it's because it's who God made me to be. Yeah. I'm there for people. People have been there for me. Why wouldn't I return that graciously? Why wouldn't I give back anything that's been given to me with just such an open heart of, you need some help? Let me help you. We have a homeless guy in front of our store. He's there all the time. And he is such an interesting dude, and he wants no help. It's like I show up and he's sitting there and I'm like, hey man, I got you that. I brought you some food. I got you these I don't want, oh no, thank you. I don't need that. I'm like, no, but you do,
Right,
but he's so caught up in whatever brought him to that point that he refuses help. But it doesn't mean that I stop trying to help, because then I'm not being me. He's going to be him, but every day I'm going to chip at that to remind him of who he was, because he wasn't always the dude who sat in front of my store. He had a life. He probably, grew up just like we did. He's gotten a little lost, so there's my long-winded answer to that question.
I love that answer though, because I think sometimes I swear, and maybe this is just because I'm getting older now, but like I'll have a conversation with someone like the guy in front of your store, right? And in my mind, I'm like, I am one bad moment from being in front of someone's store. You know what I mean?
I do.
And I know, like, we look where we're at and we have things and we got, whatever. But honestly, like, I feel like we're all like right on the precipice, of that. And I just, for me, it's like, I'm with you. I kind of want to just, because I have that thought, I'm drawn to that conversation, because I'm drawn to that conversation. I feel like I need to show some compassion, because maybe it's a selfish thought, because if I'm there, I would want someone to do the same thing for me.
And that's it.
Right.
Yeah. That's it. It's like I talked to you guys the first time. I administer to others the mercy that I want returned. But if I say that and it's voiceless and I don't do it, then I'm just talking, So I do it because I genuinely hope. If James Paschall, growing up the way that I did, I am always one step from folly every day. Every moment from when I wake up to when I go to bed, I am one step from folly. And if I fall, I pray to God that those who love me and care about me will remember that one step from folly is not what defined me. It was the moment of weakness that they lift me up in.
Yeah,
that's all.
That's it. And honestly, that's the essence of what we were talking about, Mike, before James jumped in.
Yeah,
right?
no, I get it.
Yeah.
I dig that. It also makes me think, that person is this.
Yeah.
It gets me thinking of, in church, we're looking at Old Testament and that idea of Joseph, right? Joseph is given all of this adversity outside of his control. He's sold into slavery, but everyone that interacts with him says, man, you're not like a slave.
Right.
You're not like any slave I've ever met. And then he's put in prison. It's like, man, you're not really a prisoner. Like, you're here, you're in these circumstances, but there's something about you that is different. And like, how cool is it if we can, regardless of circumstance, we can keep that, we can keep that and be like, man, that guy, he's holding a sign. He's asking for something, but there's so much more to that guy.
Yeah.
I dig that.
I dig that too, man. I'd love to be better. And I love the fact that, your kids, James, are seeing that and saying, Dad, why do you do this? And I mean, those are just like the best moments, right? Where we can teach, when you're not just sitting down saying, hey, kids, you should be doing these things. You're doing things.
Oh, I think that's the best.
Why
That's the best question a kid could ask, right? It's not like, oh, here goes Dad talking again. It's like, no, hey, Dad, why did you just do that?
Yeah.
Because when you're gone, that's what they're going to remember.
Right.
They're going to be like, let me tell you about your great grandpa James. Let me tell you about the things that he did.
Yeah.
Not the things he said.
Yeah.
And that's it though. That's it right there, because it's the difference between what you say and what you do. Because you can say a lot of things, you can say a lot of powerful, uplifting things, but you see somebody on the corner and he helps you drive by. Your kids see that, they're aware of it. They might not latch on in the moment, but they're like, that you drive by, they watch.
Totally. My youngest will say, Dad, you didn't stop and give them anything.
Right.
Dad, are you going to go back? Yeah. Like, I want to, I don't have, we're in a hurry, or whatever. And I'm
but I mean, that's the balance too, right? Like you want to do so much. Like even Tyler, you were talking about that guy that you were helping in the conversation, and you drive off in this state of empathy, like, man, he's got it so bad and I've got it so good. And there's no difference.
No,
There's no worth value. Like, it's not
absolutely.
like I'm better.
No,
And I just want
drive
to
away. I drive away with that thought, like, I could be there.
I could be there.
I could be there. That's always the thought that I have. But it's interesting is I was at.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you real quick.
Yeah.
How cool would it be is if in your interaction with him, you drove off thinking, man, I could be there. And he's thinking, maybe, just maybe I could be there.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that, like, hopefully, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when we're interacting with people on a meaningful level, I hope that's a thought that they have, and not like, man, I just talked to Tyler. Well, that guy, seriously, what a clown. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that there's anything like, man, I hope I got something from that.
But it start, regardless, you don't do things with the hope of expectation. I don't, right?
Yeah.
You do them because that's who you are, right? You're geared to do these things because you've heard something, you've been gifted with something, you know what not the good thing to do, because it's not about being good, but the right thing to do is, right?
Yeah.
And even if it's not received with expectation of, that's so awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
It starts an itch, at the back of their head. We, the church I attend every year for the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years, we do a Christmas party for a rescue mission in Richmond. And I don't know if you guys know about Richmond, but Richmond's gangster. It's no joke. There's a part of Richmond that's called the Iron Triangle. And it's probably, in my proximity, the most violent area around, right? It is so violent to the point of the police don't even really go into it unless necessity dictates they go into it. Otherwise, it's kind of like, I would guess, like a really violent third world country. It's ruled by the inhabitants, and that's just how it goes. So we get the opportunity to administer to these families. They're in the rescue mission, they're homeless, but there's these kids and they come in and they're just so hard edged, and the walls are so up, and then there's a bunch of people dressed up in colorful clothes, making them breakfast and buying them presents. And there's these looks on their face the entire time of this defense, right? So you're not doing it for the reward.
Yeah.
But then they leave and you get a call from one of the moms, and they're like, we don't get it, but thank you, Yeah. And I'm not looking for the thank you.
Sure.
But I'm looking for that stirring of, that woman just called for she doesn't even know why she did it, but it stirred something. Because the act of just being obedient to what my God said to do stirred these things inside of her. And now her kids are having a Christmas, which they don't normally get, which is cool in of itself. But it's just that little bit of, no, I'm just being who I was made to be. I'm loving you, even though you don't want it, even though you don't trust it. That's what I'm going to do, And then they show up the next year, and I'll tell you what, they'll show up the next year and they just run up and they hug you. This guarded kid who grew up in this environment that you just don't understand. And the next year they come up and they hug you and they're like, I missed you this whole year. It's like, okay, there's what you're hoping for. There's a little cause and effect of things.
Yeah. No, I love that, man.
Okay. I gotta just stop you here, because that sounds really easy. Every once in a while, James, it's our show, so we get to tap the brakes, right? And dig a little deeper, because I think that idea of doing it without any expectations, and that can be challenging, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because some people could feel offended that it's not delivering, right? Somebody could be like, what's my return on investment? That's kind of the world we live in, right? It's like, well, hold on, I'm giving time, we're giving resources for what? Like, what's the point of it, right? And the idea, I love what you said. The point is to do it because my God commanded me to do it, right?
Yeah.
I'm just, what is it? I'm just trying to be the person that I was made to be.
Right. That's it.
I think that I'll be honest, like, in those situations, like, I do have an expectation, and here's the one expectation that I cling to in anything that I anything, right, where I'm in this service minded, it's always about, I hope my kids are taking some kind of note on this, and it's sinking in for them to want to do the same thing. That, I guess that's the expectation that I'm always looking at, is like, are they going to be into that? Am I providing a good enough example that they're going to want to do this same thing, sacrifice some time and some energy for somebody else.
But I think too, you can take what James just taught us and you can apply that to marriage.
100%.
I'm not doing this for the gold star, right? I'm not doing this so that my wife would be like, oh man, he's cleaning things up around here. Look at this guy, right? I'm doing this because my God commanded me to love unconditionally. Yeah. His love is unconditional, right?
Yeah.
And that's a liberating thing.
And I'll tell you,
human nature being human nature, it can be challenging.
Yeah, it can. But let me give you some old man knowledge. You guys are where you're at. I'm going to be 49 this year. I tell everybody else I'm going to be 50 because that way when they look at me and they go, "You're 50," I go, "Yeah." They go, "You look great." I'm like, "Thanks."
It's a great life hack.
It is. It is. But here's the thing. I mean, I grew up, not so much different than anybody else, but I grew up under very diverse circumstances. I grew up in situations that could have defined me in a very different manner than the way they did, right? Or I could have said, I'm going to make a bunch of bad decisions because I can. I'm justified because I lived these things. They affected me this way. You don't understand. You had mom and dad. You had the Beaver Cleavers and the Waltons and the perfect, and I didn't. So I can make a bunch of excuses about life. And I've struggled with it a lot. I've struggled with a lot, from both the level of happy acceptance to anger over why it took so long to be better, But like all of us, I could be a byproduct of my environment, and I could be like, oh, this is why I am the way that I am. But as I've learned, and to be honest, it's only been in the last 4.5 years, let's say, I've realized that it's so much easier than I make it to be what God called me to be. Because all the preconceived notions of life that I had, what I'm going to be, what I'm going to do, what I don't want, what I do want, it's just all boiled down to the simple thing. I've been reading a lot about the life of Christ, of why he came, his purpose. And the entirety of it showed me this. As a perfect vessel, he came and gave up everything, right? To show me, to show James Paschall that you can do it. It's hard. It's difficult. It's taxing. But as the author and the perfecter of faith, he said, I'm going to show you what can be done if you just listen. Stop thinking, and just listen. And I've been really trying to do that because I struggled so hard with my life for so long, and I'm just so glad to not anymore. And Mike, as you're saying, human nature, it is. It absolutely is. But it's also the easiest thing to give up. When you get up in the morning and you're like, I just have today. I'm going to do today what I'm given today. And if I get tomorrow, cool. But if not, today is all I got. It slows the pace down of everything, of expectation, and it makes it easier to see the purpose in the moment. And that's my grind right now. That's my day to day. And sometimes I rock it. And sometimes I'm like, blew that one. Hopefully I'll get tomorrow, but I don't beat myself up anymore over the failings of my flesh, because I understand it. I know what it is. I know who I am, but I also know I'm so much more. So I focus on the so much more to not get lost in the, I know who I am. Okay, that's an easy one for me. I could live there all day, every day, and be complete. I've talked to people that are like, well, yeah, you should feel like that. And I'm like, well, but no, man, I don't want to, Yeah. It's just an excuse. For me, it's just an excuse. Not that it's not real, but as a logical kind of assessment of life, I get it. I can make a lot of excuses for my bad behavior, and I have for years. I just don't want to do that anymore, so.
Can't change if we're not owning it, right? If we're not owning it. But
Right.
like, hey, so I'm curious, just so you know, we do have some new questions in our bag. We've
Oh,
upped our game, right? We've upped our game, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But one of the things that I want to drill down a little bit when you said, stop thinking, and just listen. From time to time, we'll talk about how dang noisy the world is, right? You've got work, you've got your relationship with your wife, you've got your kids, you've got things. How does James Paschall get quiet?
Quiet is my biggest struggle. My father used to tell me, your biggest weakness is your mind, because I'm in here a lot. I win and lose battles of the intangible in here all the time, because how do you say, the value of my intelligence, or the things that I think I know that are higher than others, right? And he was right. And he used to have us come over and we'd pray. He'd be like, I just want you. He'd be like, we're just going to be quiet before the Lord. I'm like, I'm going home. I can't do that, Dad. I can't do that. I'm a person who is in motion all of the time, right? I'm a person who resists all of the time. Now you want me to sit here and not talk and not move and just listen? I don't have that skill set. And I've struggled with that for years. But the way I get quiet now, Mike, is simply like this. And it's the same thing that I said about when I wake up. If I get today, I start it in a better way than I have. I listen for direction. I seek purpose. I have so many, side note, right? In regards to your question, being me, I have a lot of responsibilities, just like everybody else. But there's not a single level of my life where I'm not responsible for more than I want. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's like I'm a husband. I'm the father of 5. I'm in charge of my business. I'm a teacher in the church. I'm a leader of youth group. I'm in a position where I'm always in a position of accountability. So learning how to be quiet really starts as this. I got to be submissive to God in the morning. I got to find a peace in my center to get past just getting out of bed, and then I just live my day listening, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes I rock it out, man. Sometimes I get home and I'm like, I should get a high five from somebody. You might not know why, but I deserve one. And then other times I'm like, I'm just going to go to bed, and seriously hope I can recoup for the weakness or the failings of my flesh today. But getting quiet, Mike, is my struggle every day. It starts with it and it ends with it, and I haven't found the perfect path, but I'm working on it. I'm learning to listen, man. I'll tell you what, I am such a hard-headed individual. Learning to listen, that is my lifelong lesson. I think I'll learn that lesson until the day I die, but I'm gaining ground little by little.
Yeah. Well, hey, I love the saying. And sometimes when I'm in church or responsibilities and things, I want to make sure that people understand that what the words that are coming out of my mouth are things that I need to hear, right? Things that I need to learn. There's that phrase, the teacher teaches what he needs to learn.
Right.
So James Paschall, teacher in church, what are you teaching right now that you need to learn?
There is, as you know, we have lived through a very tumultuous last 2 years, and we are, for the first time ever, getting back together in physical contact with our body of Christ. And it's been 2 years of Zoom meeting, and we've been diligent, but now there's this disconnect with getting back together in person, right? People they're a little hesitant. I get it. Other people have developed habits. Hey, if I could go to church in my pajamas, I'm going to do that. If I could stay on the Zoom, why not? I'm still there. I mean, I might not have my screen on, but you can see my name, right? So last week we talked about the ministry of reconciliation. Learning that the reason God gave Christ to us was to reconcile ourselves to him, But the ministry is to reconcile ourselves to each other. And what I want to remind people of, and what I need to remember is, it's not on my timetable, but the work has to be done still to bring things back to what they should be. And it's not easy. It's like, man, I had so many, we decided maybe 2 weeks ago to start gathering again, right on the cusp of me having all these events where I'm supposed to be out of town every weekend, because it's easy to be out of town and be on Zoom. And now I'm like, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
It's like, I got a skate thing in Reading, and I got a this and that, and but now I got to recenter myself and reconcile myself to what God wants me to do, which is, I called my people back together. You going to be there? I'm like, yeah. And now I'm going to talk about it so I can tell you what I need to hear also.
Yeah.
All right. Skate thing in Reading. Talk to me. What's
April 16th, Ty? You know about this? They've redone the Reading Park. It opens, grand opening, April 16th.
Oh, there it is, man.
Some very cool people are going to be there, myself included.
all right. We'll drop that in the show notes, right?
There you go.
They expanded it, right? I mean, the skate park it's next level, Tyler.
Oh man, I've seen photos, Ty. It is something else now.
I'll have to check it out, man.
Are you going to drop in?
We are. We're going to come down. Matt, I talked to Matt, Ty, and we're going up there. Brandon's going to be there. We're just going to go. We want to be there for the grand reopening,
Yeah.
So it'll be a cool thing. We're just going to go skate a little bit, hopefully not break a hip, and have a really good time.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for the debut, James, of one of our new questions?
Absolutely.
All right. Can you share with us a memory? Paint us a picture of a moment in your life when you truly felt rich.
A moment where I truly felt rich.
You looked around, you looked at the setting, you looked at the people or whatever, and it was like, right now is rich.
Well, I will tell you, as far as questions go, I'm glad you started with that one, because for me, that's a far easier one than some. Because, and I talked to you guys about this last time with my kids, and the peace that we have gained in the years since we've talked, and when I see them, and my son Ashton, he's going to be 21 soon, and I never see him. He's living his life. I understand, but then he comes, and his brother will show up, and my girls are here, and Cammie comes out, and we just sit and we talk, and I just look around, and I'm like, yeah, this is it right here. Yeah. I could do a lot of other things, but right now in this moment, him loving him and them loving him, and the love that goes back and forth between the oldest and the youngest. And I look at my wife and I think, man, we did that together. Super rich. Yeah.
You said earlier, right? You care about moments.
Yeah.
Moments like that, right? And I love that question, because as you're saying that, I'm in the room, right? I feel that. And it's really about that love, right? That context, that living room, that family.
I think too, it's the idea of I love that question, because the answers that we get are always, something that's just recently happened. And I think that's a rich life, right? When someone says, paint me a picture of a time when you really felt rich, and it was last week when all the kids were in the same room together and we were having a conversation. I think that's so important, right? Like as I've been listening to different people answer that question, in my mind, I've thought, I don't want to be in a position where I'm saying, 6 years ago, even though I had some rich moments 6 years ago, I want to be able to say yesterday.
Yeah, it is funny how that answer is across the board right now. It's recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it was 6 years ago, that's too few. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Too few.
Life is, and you just said it, Mike, life's defined by moments. Some of them are bad, some of them are great, but they're all beautiful if you look at it in the context of you're still doing it, you're still here. And I'll tell you, Ash comes in the room and Shiloh, who is the youngest, looks at him with adoration. You're like, oh, there's another one, and then they sit there next to each other and he watches, Cinderella and Barbie shows with her because he loves her and she adores him. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't, that's not contrite, you know?
See, that's cherish.
That's right.
Before you jumped on, we talked about that. Change people, cherishing people changes them. And cherish just isn't a word that we're hearing a lot in 2022. And so like the idea of, man, can we create cherishing spaces? Can we create cherishing traditions? Can we explicitly interact and have conversations with people where they know? Tyler mentioned this. He runs into this 18-year-old kid. He's only met him a couple of times, but the guy runs in and sees Tyler and he's like, "You're here." Right?
I felt like a rock star, dude. I was like, darn right I'm here. What's going on?
Yeah, right. I mean, but it's simple moments like that where people just walk away feeling like, man, that guy cherishes me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, man. Life is, I think, I honestly do think though that it's a skill that we have to work on and develop to be able to recognize the moments, right? And I do this with my own kids a lot. I mean, I'm probably an annoying optimist. I'm sure my kids are like, come on, because I'm always like, it's gonna be fine, we're good. But it's probably not, right? They're freaking out. But I think it's important though that we hone that skill. Like we get good at saying, oh, this is the good thing that happens. Because life is gnarly anyway. You know what I mean? And it's just it's rough, and it's always going to be rough. There's always going to be something around the corner that's going to be a disruption. And I think if we can, in the moment, go, gosh, that was pretty bad, but
we can craft them too, right? I mean, I remember, for example,
we should craft them.
Yeah, I remember, for example, like someone going on a mission, right, for church or a baptismal service. Somebody accepts the gospel and decides to get baptized, and the room's full of love, and everybody's there, and you just put your arm around the person and say, can you just look at this for a second? Let's turn around and just look at the room. Can you take a mental picture of this moment? And so when life gets hard, you can pull up this moment and you'll know, yeah, right now I feel alone, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm able to recall that moment. Yeah. And with some intentionality, we can actually craft those moments.
Well, I think the key ingredient, right, in all those things are people, right? It's all relationships. It's all the depth of those relationships. And look, I mean, I think everybody can do this, and I love doing this. I see James's face on Zoom, and I immediately think of like, just dozens of moments, that are funny, that are tender, that are, just powerful. And that's what makes life rich, right? When you have that sort of, that file that you can just dip into and go, yeah, this thing. And hopefully, you're looking at yesterday, right? We wanted those there, but I love the depth of that file, man.
It goes back. And one thing that I have learned listening to your guys' show and listening to the people that talk, it's like Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors, but it's all ice cream. Everybody has the same kind of have this tumultuous thing in life, and they get themselves centered, or they find
all
the
ice cream
centered them. They find that voice of clarity in themselves, or God gives them the spouse that defines them, or they come through the crucible of the hardships and they see with clarity. But it's all our story, it's all our story. It's just a different flavor of the same story. We're separate for so long. Yeah. And so we really start listening and finding and latching on and going, oh no, I'm not alone. I don't have to persevere and that's so much of what I get from the people that you talk to is that, and I will tell you this, and I'm terrible with names, but the dude who jumped out of airplanes over hostile countries and the older gentleman who sent packages, I want to hang out with those guys. Okay. Oh, I want to sit down with them and I want to sit there and just tell me about your whole thing, because it's like, it's so different and so far removed, but I get them.
Yeah.
Because it's the same narrative, you persevered, you struggled, you had hardships, and you woke up one day with enlightenment going, oh no, there's something more.
But, and that's it, right, James? Like if Mike and I were kind of talking about this, it's like, if we could get to a point where we just were willing to have conversations with people, complete strangers, right? At the end of it, we would be saying, oh shoot, that was 31 flavors, but it's all ice cream, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's all the same. Like, your journey was totally different than mine, but it was exactly the same as mine.
Exactly.
Well, hey, let's give some credit. That's Brian Beverly jumping out of airplanes, and Colonel Dick Moody.
That's right.
Moody,
That's right. Mr. Moody was my dude, man. I'd listen to that one. I've listened to many of them over and over, but that one I probably listened to 4 times.
I love Dick Moody.
It was not just his story, but the cadence of his voice and the passion of what he was doing. I'm like, hey man,
and you give me that New England accent.
Yeah, you got that Boston kind of.
Yeah. Hey guys, and I'm like, oh, I want to meet that guy. And then the other one, what'd you say his name was? Brian
Beverly.
I'm like, jumping out of planes, giving secrets up about secret missions. That's a dude to talk to right there.
He's got
okay, so hey,
too,
it has been a little bit since we talked to you, and you did you hinted at some of the peace that's come into your life over the year. Here's a question for you, and this question comes from my daughter. My daughter's serving a mission, and she's been out for a little while. So when she hit a year mark, I asked her, what is one thing that you know to be true now that you didn't know a year ago? So I present that to you.
Okay.
Where you're at right now in life, as you think about the year that you've had, what's the truth that you're holding that you didn't have before?
Comfort and peace are 2 different things. You can be comfortable your whole life and never have peace. Peace, you got to kind of fight for, you got to struggle to hold to. And I could be far more comfortable than I am right now, but I don't think I could be more peaceful than I am right now, because there's been so many events in the last year that have just rocked the kind of the you make these statements and you believe them and they're true, but then everything comes up against them and just hammers them over and over and over again. And you start thinking, possibly, maybe it might have been better to just keep on going the way that I was.
Yeah. Because
there's less of a cost or a risk doing it that way, in the moment, right? But to hold to a line, that's rough, and my predisposition in life has always been, I'll go do something else. I get uncomfortable. You challenge where I'm at, I'll just move to another position. I don't have to stand here and take it. I can move on. So the thing that I know to be true right now is that my peace that I'm grateful for is hard earned, and it's because he will give it to me, but I got to do my part too. And I got to hold it. And sometimes I wake up to hold that pot, and that pot is so hot. I just want to set it down. But I think that if I do, what's that going to cost me? What's it going to cost my kids? What's it going to cost my wife? And I've made some really big statements of how I got here, and they're true. And now I got to live with them. So there's my truth. Peace. I love that. Peace takes a little bit of, you kind of got to buck up a little bit to keep that peace is all.
Hey,
but James, it's kind of like the anvil in the forge, right?
As you're getting banged on, same imagery. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As you're getting banged on, it's tempered.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, I was a few years ago. I was at a funeral of someone that I really respect, and his son was speaking at the funeral, and he was telling this story about how, growing up, he watched his dad live this life and live a certain way that was meaningful. And towards the end of his life, they were going through some things, and they were getting ready to pitch a old pair of his dad's shoes. And he took them and he had them resoled and polished up, and he was wearing them at the funeral, and he said, I'm gonna hang on to these forever. And I loved that. I loved that thought of a couple things, like walking in his dad's shoes, literally, right? But wanting to hang on to some things that his dad had taught him. You know, last time we talked, James, we spent some time talking about your dad and the man that he was and the impact it had on your life.
Talk about moments.
Yeah. You shared some pretty powerful things. I'm curious if there's something now in your life like that pair of shoes that you're holding on to that your dad taught you that you are that you're.
You know, it's. And I shared with you guys, you know, he was such a presence, you know. He could either inject life into a room or suck the life out of it. And he was both my greatest hero and my greatest nemesis, you know, because he's my, if I have an innate weakness still to this day, it's I got dad issues, you know. Mike, we talked about it, you know, you know it can affect you. It's like I never wanted anything other than his attention. And then when it was available to me, I didn't want it anymore because I was bitter, you know. It was like, well, now it's too late type of thing, you know. And then later in life, things were better, and we were more, what would be the word? We were more friends than a father and a son. I honored him as my father because I'm a respectful, you know, I grew up in that generation of respecting your elders, but he wasn't what you would say in a traditional term, my father, right? He birthed me, but he didn't teach me the things about being a man or a father. And he and I knew it. And that's not bitterness talking. That's just truthfulness talking. You know, we talked about it. He knew it. I knew it. It was unfortunate. We got past it. But the thing that I hold to the most that I didn't think about in the moment was he didn't have a dad either, you know? So he also had no example of how to be a man or how to be a father. And his big thing was he just ran from it, you know? My thing was I'm going to do better. We were both flawed in our approach. So what I hold to with my father is I don't hold anything against him. He had what was given to him and he did the very best he could. So when I struggle and I think about where I'm either gaining or failing, I also understand I'm just doing the best that I can with what's been given. And I love my dad. I really 100%, you know, I tell people all the time, they get so weird. I'm saying these things as a fact because it's just true. It's not derogatory or negative. It's just how it was, you know? And in the end, we got great gifts and great blessings came from our release of all that garbage that muddied our lives to understand, Dad, you did the best you could. And I love you. And he said, son, you were always what I needed and didn't understand. And there you go. You know, That's it. But that's what I hold to. I hold to the fact that he gave me things, both strengths and weaknesses, but he didn't have any more than I did. And he struggled just as hard as I did, but he made it, you know, he made it. So that's it.
Given that, James, what are you hoping the 5 kids in the living room in that rich moment are learning from you?
Oh man, I'm gonna tell you what, guys, I've dialed it in.
Okay, I love this. Perfect.
You know,
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so
I'm ready.
The secret to success,
yeah,
is simply this. And I said it last time. My parents allowed me to live my life. I'm letting my kids live their life. I've taught them. I've raised them. I've given them everything. I'm the custodian of beautiful life given to me by God. Right? It's like they're my kids, but they're a gift. And I fight for them today in a way that I never have before, which is in the proper way of I listen more, I talk less. And when I do talk, it's not in confrontation, but it's an understanding of the youthfulness of, I don't know what's going on in my life. And I'm a passionate, emotional, uncontrollable creature. And you're telling me I should just get it. They're not going to get it. I didn't get it. I've come to understand that with my kids, just with my kids, the things that irritate me the most in them, that I try so hard to stamp out, are the things in myself that I never gained control over. Yet here I am turning on them and going, I'm going to fix this in you. You are? You didn't fix it in yourself. So how are you going to do that with them? So I stopped and we talk about it. When they bring something up or they show something, I'm like, you know where you get that? That's me. And then I just tell them how that affects me and how I was weak for a long time. I had such a good conversation with Sky. Sky just turned 18, now he's 18 and he knows, he's always known everything, but now he knows everything on an adult level. So we were talking about things the other day and I'm listening to him and I'm hearing, forgive me, but I'm hearing the arrogance of youth, which I know oh so well, because my dad would tell me things and I would tell him contrary. And then you look at the fact that he's been alive for 5 minutes in real terms, and I've been alive for 15, let's say. But in those 10 minutes, I've learned some things that you need to know, So do you want to hear them? And I'm not telling you how to be or what to do. I'm telling you what you're saying to me. Here's how I dealt with it. You could do better or you could do worse. But everything is about there's no compromise in the expectation, but there's compassion in the understanding. So that's what I hope to give to my kids, especially my girls. I'm going to tell you what, they unman me a little bit, guys, I know how to deal with that. Young ladies, I'm like, I got one turning 13 this year. And I'm like, Cambria, I think you're up. I think I have to sit on the bench for a little while.
Is that your oldest girl, 13?
Chloe's going to be 13 in June. Yeah. So this year I'll have 13, 12, and 7 with the girls. And Ash will be 21 and Sky just turned 18. So pinnacle ages.
That's fun, man. That's fun.
Is Sky still at home?
He is still at home, but he's also like, by the time I'm 20 and have 2.5 million in the bank, I'm going to be going to this school and I'll have a block. So I think he'll probably be out as soon as school's out.
Hey, well, look, I think I have some fairly clear memories of sitting on a curb somewhere on our skateboards talking like we had things pretty much figured out at the age of 18.
Did we not, man? Did we not have it figured out?
with $2 between us, right?
Yeah. How to get back from Chico at 2:00 in the morning after we danced all night. It's like,
exactly.
Okay, who's driving? I'm not. I got to sleep. I work at 6. So yeah, we had it all figured out.
It was all figured out, man.
Yeah.
That's funny, man.
All right, we got another question. New one. A relatively new one. I don't think we asked you this one last time around. We are putting together a master list of things every man should be able to do.
Hey, just for some point of reference here.
Uh-huh.
We've got the scale on one end, riding a horse, right? And Mike, and where else have we landed?
We've got some soft skills, right? Like listening
and forgiving,
which was nice. My favorite answer was make enough money to hire people to do things a man should be able to do.
Yeah, that's true. That was a good one. Yeah. I'm not quite there yet, but
okay. On the level of difficulty, this is the most difficult yet for me, because as far as skill sets go, I got very few. I could sit here in the dark and put together and take apart skateboards. No problem. But if my wife asked me to put up chair rail, I'm like, what? I YouTube it. I do it wrong. I break things. I throw everything out the front door. I yell a lot. And then I call somebody who knows better to come do it. So I'll tell you.
The neighborhood's like, James is doing some DIY.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they know. Because it's like the front door's open. I'm like. But here's what every man should be able to ask for and to do. Ask for help. When you don't know, call somebody who does. I don't know everything. I don't even know half of everything. So when it's like, hey, we should do this, I'm like, oh, that's not my skill set. It's like, I'll ask somebody like my younger brother, Jeff. If there was like an apocalypse, he is the guy you'd want on your side because he just gets things, we should do this. He'd be like, oh, this will work. I'm not that, I'm much more of I read, I learn, I absorb. Actual application, not my skill set. So my gift to you is ask for help. That's what every man should do. That's what every man should know.
And that's the knock, right? That we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple knocks. I think we're poking holes in some of the theories and some of the stereotypes through this podcast. One of them is we don't talk about serious things. We get together with dudes and we talk about shallow, superficial things, right? And so one of the thoughts is, how can we get deeper faster, right? How can we have sincere conversations where we're really connected? And then the other thing is, asking for help. And I actually think those two go together, because a lot of times if we did get serious and deep, we'd be saying, I don't have answers and I need help. But instead it's like, oh, how about them Dodgers, right?
Well, who was it? One of our guests said that vulnerability is the cornerstone. Is that right? Of friendship. And I think that's the thing.
Oh,
right?
and there's nothing more
the
vulnerable than saying, I don't know.
If you can't ask for help and you just want to sit and talk about the score of the baseball game, then I don't know. I agree with you, James. Ask for help, man.
And then you sit there, you're just like, in your head, it's like, I can't do this. I don't know what to say. And if anybody asks, I'm just going to say, oh, I tried. And it just, there was something wrong with the materials. That's my rationale. I think I got some bad particle board. I think
that's right. Yeah.
Hey, custodian of a beautiful life. Can I talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Moment to moment, life may not be beautiful. How do you keep that perspective? How do you keep that perspective that life is beautiful when, come on, man, right? Like if we're being real, even the mess might be beautiful from a different perspective, but how do you keep that perspective alive?
I can't speak for everyone, but for me, it's easy. I'm in a better place than I've ever been. I have given and been given more than I ever had. Yet I still have, the things back here that I thought, it's like my mom and I, it's like she carried so much guilt about the past. And I was like, oh, you didn't mess up, But the thing about forgiveness that you don't think about is sometimes it's not that you need to say it, but they need to hear it, right? It's like, I didn't need to forgive my mom because I needed to forgive her because I was hurt. She needed it because she didn't forgive herself. So I have this beautiful relationship with my mother, who is such a strong and powerful woman, raising 3 cavemen and my dad, and was just a center of calm. And then I got I got Cammie, you want to talk about, there's nothing that compares to that gift for me. And then on top of that, she and I together, we made 5 beautiful human beings that completely refine and define everything about me. And I don't want for anything, and life can be rough and you can take a bunch of knocks, but you look around and it's like, these are the things that matter. All of that other stuff is just static and noise. It's not going to be there tomorrow. And if it is, it'll go away the next day. But the constants, my wife, my family, my mother, my brothers, my extended family, it's like, there's my life, man. That's the definition of me is, I said it earlier, I could be a byproduct of everything that transpired, because I'm not going to lie. I tell people about it and they're like, I don't believe that. And it's like, that's okay. You don't have to, I'm not telling the story to convince you. I'm telling you because it's my truth. Right. And I tell you the truth so that you can see, if you see anything of value here, you can appreciate where it came from. Because I do every day. God, I could be a constantly violent, angry, hurtful individual, and I would have every reason to be, and I choose not to. It's not because I'm altruistic and I'm like, I'm just not going to be that guy. It's because I appreciate everything that's been done since the moment that I was that guy. So there you go.
Well, I love that word custodian, right? Because custodian is like the keeper of the gift that's been given.
Yeah.
Right. I acknowledge that these things are given to me, therefore I will take good care of them. Right. And I think that's powerful. And then they need to hear it, right? So many times. And it gets into that intentionality. And tonight, the word on my mind is explicit. Like, hey, look, I don't have this in my heart against you. I've been walking around carrying the fact that I don't have it, but I need to use my words, and we need to have a moment so that you know that I don't carry it.
Yeah.
Right. So that I can make sure and liberate you, maybe in a conversation, so that you too don't carry that thing. But sometimes we assume, right? Oh, they know how I feel about them. Nah, man.
Oh.
Have the moment.
Much to probably the chagrin of my children, they're like, "Oh no, Dad, you tell us too much." They just don't. You've got to be the advocate of your truth and your past, and they don't. They never lived it. They don't understand it. To them, it's almost like science fiction. But I tell them it because it's in them. It's in their DNA to have these things, to be these things, because it's not like, I woke up one day being my dad because I just decided to. I carry him in here, and my kids carry me in them. It's like, as a young father, when you start having your kids, you're like, I'm never going to show them this part of me, right? I'm never going to show them this weakness or this temperament. And then you see it in them. You're like, where did they get that? And you're like, oh, I gave it to them. So now what am I going to do? Oh, you could try my method in the early years. I'm going to hammer it out of you with words and, direction and control. And, I'm going to fit you in this box of not, veering outside of being me. Or I have to go, oh no, you're you, but you're also me. And if you're going to be me, here's some things you should know, And I tell them all the time. And they're like, sometimes they're receptive to it and they get it. And sometimes they're like, here's Dad. He's on a rant, With the girls, it's a little bit easier because they can't really deviate outside of the room. I kind of got them on lock. But the boys are adults now. And they're like, oh, hey, I hear you, but I got to go. I'm like, no, one more thing. They're like, no, I really got to go. I'm like, okay, but just one more thing.
That goes to this idea, though. Mike and I were talking about this earlier before you came on. I was telling Mike, I'm like, James is kind of in this world where he's parenting adults and he's parenting kids at the same time.
It's like I got two families.
Yeah. That's I mean, I can kind of relate to that. I've got a 12-year-old at home and then I've got, and a 17-year-old, but then I've got two out.
Yeah.
And it's a different animal altogether. Like, Ricky and I were talking about this the other day. It's like, it went from, let me give you these directions and then sort of being like, okay, let me write these directions down, to now I say, hey, let me give you some suggestions. And they're like, okay, yeah, I got you. Don't worry about it. Right.
Yeah. The car's already started. I have to go.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that. Thanks for delaying my departure.
Yeah.
So but it's interesting. So the balance there, I mean, what have you learned from your experience with your two older boys in parenting them, and how you're taking those lessons and applying them to your daughter?
Well, it's gone from, running to things to learning how to walk, because with Ash, I made every mistake, firstborn children. I won't speak for you guys, but firstborn children and a new dad, you make all your mistakes with them, right? You're overbearing with them in ways you're not with the next because you realized it didn't work. You overcompensate in certain ways with them because you either didn't have it or you didn't know that you needed it. So you make mistakes with them, right? Like, we grew up really poor. So with Ash, it's not that I wanted to spoil him, but I lavished him with everything that I could because I could, and it kind of gave him a sensibility of, well, I lost it, but Dad will give me another one, that kind of mindset. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't him, right? That was me. But then I'd get mad at him for that mindset. Mm. So I made all my mistakes with him. And then with Skylar is Cammie. And God bless them both, but nobody tells either one of them what to do, So neither one of them are what you would call listeners of helpfulness. They're argumentative. They're and it's just like, both of them, they tell me all the time, well, you just want to be right. I'm like, well, that's kind of inconceivable because worst case scenario, 50-50, right? It'd have to be. That's just math. But if I'm always wrong, then you guys have been, married to and raised by a madman, because I'm always wrong. Then, I'm a lunatic. So with him, I had to learn temperament, because you accept things from your wife, but when you see your child, you're like, you're out of your mind, man. That's not, we're not going to do that. And then you get to the girls and they're so different, because there's such a span Ash is 21, Sky's 18, Chloe's going to be 13, then 12 and 7. So there's such a span in between. And that's the proving ground of assessment. Okay, here's where I either really did good or didn't. And here's where I want to be better, right? But then you get these girls, and like I said, they unman you because they're different, you know? They're stronger in certain ways. They're gentler in certain ways. And then you start thinking about, you know, as that they're women in general, you know? And I just persevere with each of them in a different vein because they're all so different. Like Lola, my middle daughter, between the three, if anybody in this house is me, and that's the one I want to thump all the time. and I get it. She'll say, and she'll look at me and she'll say things. And I'm like, how dare you? And then I go in my head, well, I know how she dares. I know her dad, you know? Yeah. And then you get down to Shyla, who you know, it's like trial and effect, right? Scientific method. You keep trying until you perfect it. And then you get to her and you're like, oh, I did it. This is the one, you know? And then she plays that because now she's going to be 7. She's like, oh, I got it. I got dad right here, you know, right on this little finger. And then Chloe, she just wants to be good because that's what she thinks she should be. So it's the temperament of each individual to be the father that they need in that moment. And then just teach them all the things that they need to know in general, you know, love God, be aware, be a good person, care about I tell the girls all the time, you know, no, your sister's first. And that means you'll be best friends forever. So that means you need to be nice to each other in the moment, not when it's convenient, right? Because, hey, we can all do that. But I want them to be bond. I mean, I am so close with my brothers. And it kind of freaks me out when I see people have conflict with their siblings. Because me and Joel and Jeff, we have disagreements, but we don't have conflict, you know? They're my blood. They're my everything. You know, they're my go-to. When I'm emotionally malcontent and I can't talk to Cammie, I go to them. You know, that's a gift. I want my kids to understand that that's a gift to have each other, you know. But that's why I dad now. My dad method this day is, like I said, listen, talk less, but when you talk, be more important with what I say, you know. Be more concise.
I think that we just stumbled on a new question, Tyler. What is one thing that your kids would say you're always saying to them?
Oh man. Golly.
They would preface this. Oh, dad always says, no, listen. Let me tell you. And then they'd be like, and then they all do it. And then dad does this. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I do this.
So, James, I don't want to geek out on you, but recently I had an opportunity to travel down Tyler's way. And so I work in education, and I was able to jump into a Carnegie Foundation summit on the science of improvement. Mm-hmm. And the gist, it's funny that you just mentioned better and scientific method in your last answer. So that kind of got me thinking about this. The idea is understanding where we are, wanting to be better, and introducing a specific action that's helping us be better. Is there anything specifically that you're doing in your life right now to get you to a place that's better?
I mean, yes and no. You know, yes is in the fact that I've lived and made decisions in a certain way for a very long time, right? And they've either met me with the level of success or not. So when it's not, I have to assess what I'm doing, because I could keep hitting my head against the wall, and I have to make a change to not keep on that path, right? Because I'm many things, but I'm not ignorant. I understand that, you know, I understand cause and effect. If I'm always making the same decision, I'm always getting the same result, and I'm not really listening to what I know I should do. I'm just being stubborn and hard-headed and hoping for a better result this time. You know,
and hope is not a strategy, right?
No, it takes actual application. You know, you got to assess. No, that was wrong. You know, it's like you learn what you learn as you grow, and you either go, I'm doing that exactly because it worked, or I'm never doing that because I hated it, right? So you only got really 2 definitions of decision making, but then there's the middle ground. Try something a little different. What's different? Oh, you got to be different. No, I don't want to be different. I just want I want the results to be different, you know?
So we want different results, but we don't want to change, right?
Right.
Is Cammie involved in that assessment process?
Oh, she is the definer of that process. It's very emphatic. You should not, and you should. And I told her the other day, we had a very tumultuous event in our life, and I am, even at the advanced stage of myself, and I don't say this with pride, I am predispositioned to reacting a certain way to certain things. And I did, and she said some things, and I got so angry. I was already angry, and I got even angrier. And I just went to bed, because if I didn't go to bed, I was going to say things that were scathing and hurtful, because I was volatile. And I got up the next morning, she started apologizing, and I was like, no, let me stop you. I wasn't mad at you because of what you said. I was mad at you because you were right, and I knew it. And it made me so angry, because not because I don't want you to be right, but I'm so tired of being wrong in my head about certain actions. So yeah, she dictates a lot. She is who she is, and we are who we are. And every once in a while, we both get a little clarity in regards to the betterment of each other. But when she's calm and quiet, it's a thing,
Yeah.
I just throw a highlight on that really quick. I'm so tired of being wrong in my head.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there.
I like the idea, I kind of asked that question about Cammie being involved in the assessment process, because sort of tongue in cheek, but the reality is, I think that, I'm a big believer in like self-assessment, right? Like I want to be able to look at myself and say, and be honest with myself that these are some things that I need to do. But sometimes being honest with myself is tough, right? Like I'll admit some things. Okay, I got to make a little bit of a change here. But to have someone that loves you, right? That is willing to be by your side through the good and the bad and the ugly, and then that person say, "Hey, here's some things," right? I mean, it hurts, and I've had the same experience where I've been told some things that I need to change, and my initial reaction is, who are you to tell me what I need to change?
But right? Because it's like,
but I know immediately that she's 100% right, and I need to change those things. But it's the pride, right, of admitting to yourself that, hey, maybe these things that I do impact more than just me.
Well, and with her, and I tell her all the time, it's like, listen, I'm not. The things she says to me are the things that I hate the most, and she's not saying them to hurt me, right?
Right.
But the person you love the most telling you what you hate most about yourself, or where you're the weakest, is like, I would like to say I could do without that. That's not a true statement, but it's like, man, it's like,
it'd be nice to not have that.
Yeah, it would. She's like, oh, but you're boop. And I'm like, oh, there you go. Yep. Yeah. I am that one. Thanks. I really wanted to hear that again, even though it's in here 24/7,
Right.
And she's not saying it to be hurtful. She's just like, hey, but you got to look at this too. I'm like, okay.
And there are times where I've had those conversations, and my initial reaction is frustration or anger or whatever it is. And later, when I'm thinking about that conversation, you know what my thought is? It's like, how many times does she have to tell me before I get it through my own head to make that change? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I do.
And I've felt before, like I owe it to myself, but I owe it to everybody that's attached to this train that I'm driving to make those changes.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, but.
Well, and I think that the train is an interesting thing to highlight, because like they have a vested interest in you improving.
Yeah, 100%. Right.
Right. Their life is hitched to your wagon, right?
And that
their
train,
happiness, their joy.
Yeah. And that train is hitched together even when they're out of the house. Do you know what I mean? Like your kids, all three of the girls, Sky, Ash, they're all at the house living their lives, happy, but they're still attached to you. The train is still attached. And so it's not like there's an end game where we're like, okay, last one turned 18, they moved out. This whole improvement thing.
I'm going to Maui.
Yeah, this whole improvement thing is over, right? Because I just and look, I see that with my own siblings and my family, right? Everyone's out of the house, everyone's doing their own thing, but man, there is an engine on that train, and sometimes that engine's not making the changes that need to be made, and everybody, no matter how many years removed, are still impacted by that thing, right?
And the thing with Cambria is she sees me truthfully and understands that I'm more than I let myself be. I don't like to be reminded of it. I don't want to hear how I'm still failing in this area. I understand it, but like I look at her, she looks at me with the clarity of not what she sees, but who I am.
Yeah.
And she just reminds me of it sometimes. And in being reminded, sometimes you're frustrated, sometimes you're angry because you know it too. You know it and you can't grasp it yet, or you've grasped it and you let it go.
Yeah.
Or you've dropped it. And then they bring it up and you're like, hey, I tell her all the time, stop telling me what I know. Okay, stop. And she's like, well, if I don't tell you, how are you? And I'm like, I don't know, Yeah. And we go back and forth. And then I want to do the same thing for her, but I'm less, I guess the word would be kind, about it, because now I'm defensive and I'm like, oh, well, you know what you should do. Right. And it's like, no, man, she loves me. She just wants me. She wants me to be who she knows I am, and sometimes
it's a call to higher ground.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't want to get up there, Mike. Sometimes I just want to sit on that lower ground and be like arms crossed, and be like, no, I'm standing right here, at least for today,
All right, let me
Yes.
Let me pivot, because I recently had a conversation at work. It's feedback season, right? So it's kind of 360, getting feedback on performance and that kind of thing. And I haven't seen the results of any surveys yet. So I was having a conversation with somebody that I work with, and I said something and I almost winced, because I know the spirit of the richest men in town is driving me to try to live better. But I actually said, hey, I need you to know that there's just some things I'm not going to change.
That's what you said?
Yeah. Now, Tyler, I know you're going to be like, well, hold on. Here's my point.
Okay.
It's not I am who I am and I'm not going to change. It's a long time ago, I sat down and thought about my funeral, and I thought about the person that I want to be known as in that moment, and I will not change that. Right? So if feedback comes in that Mike likes to spend time talking to people, and sometimes he talks to people and it gets a little, right? It gets a little hard on the calendar to work with him. Mike, in the box at the end of his life, wants to be known as a person who took time to talk to people. And so it's not an I am who I am, but there are things that I'm trying to do intentionally to be that person. Right? So, James, am I barking up the wrong tree, or are there things that you are fighting like heck to defend and not change?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have the lines of what I call no compromise.
There we go.
You guys know this. I mean, everything is changing now. Acceptance of things, and nothing is like it was when we were in our youth, right? No level of conversation, no acceptance of my children. It's like my children don't know who to be when they leave the house, because everybody is telling them contrary. You can't say this. You can't do that. You're not this. That's not appropriate. You're being offensive. It's like, oh my goodness, girl. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, no, you're not. This is a fact. People don't like facts. Are you being hurtful? No. You're just stating a fact about you, right? And I won't, and I get told all the time, you can't say that. Oh, I can say anything I want, guys. I said, I don't think you know. If you don't know that by now, you haven't been paying attention. And then I go out into the world and I work with, young men, 18, 19, and they'd be talking and I'll interject. Like, oh, we don't say that anymore. Well, no, I do. And it's not offensive. I'm not sitting there throwing offensive things out. I'm just making statements that challenge the detachment that the world is in right now. Because it's so detached from reality, it freaks me out sometimes. It's like my girls will come home from school and they'll say things and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, and who said that? Oh, my teacher. I'm like, oh, that hurts my head a little bit, and I understand because nobody wants to be accountable for being true. Everybody doesn't want to get in trouble for, upsetting the apple cart, but nobody really wants to make a stand in regards to there are some things that are non-negotiable in life. There are some things that you just don't compromise.
Truth.
Right. Because you know what doesn't.
Truth is truth. And we're in a place where truth is defined by the individual over and over and over again.
Right.
And the end of the day, truth
Relative
is truth.
Right.
Right.
And I tell them that all the time. There was a lot. You guys ever watch Jesus Christ Superstar? Andrew Lloyd Webber?
I have seen Jesus Christ Superstar.
Okay, so I've watched it 9,992 times. It's one of when my dad was in the military, my mom and I had no television channels, and we had 2 records, Grease and Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh man, winners.
So I would listen to those on loop over and over again. But there's a part where Pilate's talking to Jesus, and he said, "You speak of truth. Is truth unchanging law? We both have truth, as mine the same as yours." And the reality is, no, truth is just truth. It's undeniable. You don't have to, if you have to substantiate it with a bunch of facts, you know what I mean? It's like, no, truth is a statement that is undeniable. I don't have to prove it. It just has to be known. This is the truth. And my kids come home with so much untruth. I define for them to be strong. I want them to be strong. I want them to walk out and not be compromised by hearsay and the mood of the moment and, innate weakness because nobody wants to be real about things and just stay, oh no, I love this about you. Or I like this, but instead of kid gloves with everything, and they're so shell shocked to talk about anything. They come home and they're like, well, what'd you learn? Well, nothing, it's like, they can't talk about anything, So my line is that, Mike, I got lines of no compromise, and my no compromise is I'm going to be truthful about what I know to be true, not what I think, but what I know to be true. I'm going to teach my kids that so they can be stronger as they go, to not be shook by things or upset by things, because that seems to be the norm, Mm-hmm. Oh, someone said something, everybody's up in arms. And it's like, wow, that's all it took. You should have grown up in the 90s, my friend. You would have been crying all the time,
Well, I think that when you talked about studying and learning the life of Jesus Christ, and when you look at his mission and his purpose and the things he was dropping, right? You want to talk about non-negotiable. You want to talk about dropping truth that was not socially accepted. I mean, he was not there to conform.
No.
Right. And a lot of people struggle when I say that, Jesus Christ was revolutionary, but Jesus Christ was revolutionary.
He was a rabble rouser, man.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine standing in front of the
not in the spirit of contention.
No.
But in the spirit of truth, right?
Right. Spirit of truth. There's a difference.
Yeah. Standing in front of those guys and going, oh, I'm sorry, but you're wrong, guys. Yeah. You've been doing it wrong. And here's how you can be right. But you don't want to do that, because you've been doing it for so many years. And I get it. I appreciate you. But here's a better way. And they're like, sorry, no, I marvel at it.
It's interesting though, because what you're talking about of truth, and then, using the example of Jesus Christ as someone who just spoke truth when it was unpopular to speak that truth. I mean, we're in that position, man. We're in that position, and truth is challenged at every turn nowadays.
But he did it perfectly. Of course he did it perfectly because he lived that perfect life. But he did it. When a lack of truth is hurting someone that we love, we step into that space. Right? And like James says, hey, listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because I love you. And this lack of truth, or maybe your lack of an understanding of this true principle is hurting you and therefore hurting me. I'm responsible to step into this space and share with you the thing that I know to be true. But we talked, Tyler, before about this. When you teach that truth, you share your own personal experience with gaining that truth. Right. So you can say, I know of myself that this thing is true. And is in that explicit way, the Holy Ghost is going to be there. It's going to confirm. And people now then have a choice, right? They don't have to necessarily accept it. The invitation is there for everybody to accept it, for them to discover it for themselves. But as you're there and the Holy Ghost confirms the truth, they now, right, in the words of Stephen Mitchell, what are you going to do about it? Right? Now it's presented to them. And that is, I love that idea of non-negotiable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. I've learned from some very spiritual people about compromise. Compromise is knowing in your heart what is right and not doing it, right? Mm-hmm. It's giving ground for comfort, for acceptance, for whatever the moment dictates. Compromise comes at a cost, but it also, compromising comes at a cost. And if you create an air of certainty, not arrogance or, opinion, but of simple truth, right? And you don't give ground to that, well, there you go. There's your you plant your standard in the ground, right? And this is
the beautiful thing about that, James, is your kid comes to you then.
Yeah.
Right? Then they'll know I'm going to go to dad and he's not going to tell me what I want to hear. He's going to tell me what I need to hear.
Yeah. He's going to tell truth.
He's going to tell me truth, and truth is going to set me free, right? It's going to be liberating to me, but there's not going to be any doubt because the guy sets everything, right? Everything on that truth.
Yeah.
Dig that. Dig it. So Tyler, am I right? Are you good? Are we good with my statement of there are some things that I'm not gonna change?
I like it, man. Yeah.
All right.
I can support that.
Because I said those words and was like, oh man, if Tyler Gould heard me say that, I'd have some explaining to do. So hopefully you're buying my explanation.
I'm buying what you're selling, man. I like it. So, well, James, look, I could do this all night.
I mean, seriously, look at this. I need more paper, man.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, honestly, I'm grateful for you, for one, for coming back and talking to us. It's been a ton of fun. But I can't let you go, without revisiting the last question of the show, because it's been 60 some episodes. Yeah, something like that. Before you were here, it's been just a little bit. And so we ask, as you know, we ask everybody the same question at the end of our show. What does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town? You've answered that question once before. Has that, in a year plus time since we talked last time, has that answer changed at all for you?
The answer hasn't so much changed as my perception of the question, you look at your life, you evaluate the things in front of you. And in this last year, I have gained some ground and I've lost some ground. I have been strong. I have been weak. I have learned many things and been reminded of many things. And my family is the paramount importance of my life. And they are absolutely, I mean, I get maudlin sometimes. It came like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know, man. I look at my family and I'm just like, I'm I'm joyful for them. You know, I mean, what you come from not a broken family per se, but a very convoluted family, to a family where you look at your kids, and even though maybe they're not where you want them to be, they love you so much. And your 21-year-old son calls you and has a conversation at the end of it. Every time he says, "I love you, Dad," you know, and what are you doing wrong in that sense? You know what I mean? And it's like, no, I know what fills my vaults with money, and, you know, it's love. And no, man, it hasn't changed, but I've seen some things, I've grown, and I take that into account to be rich too, because I'm still learning, you know, I'm still adapting. I'm not stagnant in my approach to anything, and I take nothing for granted these days, you know? So no, I am one joyful dude. Even when I'm sitting there in the doldrums going, man, this is rough, I'm like, oh, but I have all this. Okay, that's enough. Right. So that's my answer.
I love it, man.
That's another classic, man. Right. Growing. I think the idea of growing equals rich. I think the idea of being healthy, right?
Yeah.
When we go through a sick spell, it's like, man, that health is pretty dang valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got kids, you got 21-year-old ending conversation with, "I love you, Dad." You're doing something right? Right.
That's all I'm saying, man. You know,
that's it.
There's no obligation for him to say that. He doesn't even live here. I don't give him money, nothing. He's just, "Hey, Dad, I love you." And I know he means it. And I'm like, right on. You know?
Right on.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, brother, I love you. I'm grateful for you.
Love you guys too.
James, man, always good. Hey, I'm not a skater. I don't want to come across as a poser, but if there's a way I can catch up with you and you're in Reading, man, let's break some bread.
My plan is, I'm going to be there the 16th for sure. I'm trying to get there the 15th to the 18th. I think is my time.
On the 16th, I'm going to go to that skate park. I'm going to be looking like the one nail sticking up that has no business being there, that's about to get whacked. So come rescue me.
I will keep my eye out.
Yeah,
look for the guy that you think is going to call the cops on everybody. That's the.
Wait, you know, call that to get off my lawn guy.
Hey,
you look for him. Go places. Who's the guy who's going to get off my lawn? There he is, right there.
Yeah, and we'll hang out.
I'll send a group text here, Mike. You'll have James' number. You guys can.
Let's do that. That'll be fun.
Thank you, guys.
And I will say this, James. Get Cammie and the family, and Hotel Gould is open for business, and we want you guys down in San Diego, man.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. We need to get out of town. We've been cooped up for a long time, so
dude.
We're looking to get out.
Yeah, freedom, man. Here it is. Come on down. So,
hey, you got you know the original call when I got sick? I was clean shaven for the first time in I can't tell you how many years.
Were you really?
I was.
We were we were gonna get the James that had really done.
I would have sat there like this the whole
time, man.
I've done this. But then I was like, came like shit, and I can't do it again. It was a one-time, one-time event.
I'm just impressed that you were clean shaven for that call, and what, a week later, 2 weeks later, you got a full.
Look at this.
Yeah.
For me, that's about 8 years of growth right there. So.
Yeah, no, it's a quick one for me, man. It's like chia, you just water it a little bit, poofs out.
I love it, man. Well, hey, tell the fam that we said hi, and thanks for being here, brother. We really appreciate it.
I will. Thank you guys so much. It means a lot, sincerely.
Yeah. Love you.
All right, keep going, man.
Have a good night.
All right, night.
Bye.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.